This tutorial will explain how to verify the forecast created in the previous tutorial. Click Network, Validate, and Scenarios on the ribbon. Click Unconditional Probabilities. As you saw in the Unconditional Analysis Guide, selecting Network and Unconditional Probabilities shows the unconditional probability graphics within the context of the network. Unlike before, you selected Validate as the solution type. With this option selected, calculations are performed using simulated data, which is derived from the forecast. In contrast, Explore shows the results of calculations based upon historical data. The Validate unconditional probabilities differ slightly from the forecasts. This occurs because the Monte Carlo simulations constituting the Validate data are random and consequently will cause the proportions of simulated returns to differ from the forecast probabilities. In general, an increase in the number of simulations will decrease the difference between the forecast and Validate unconditional probabilities. However, as discussed in the Getting Started guide, more simulations also increase calculation time. Therefore, the trade-off between precision and calculation time exists for the analyses as well as the optimizer. Click Scenarios on the ribbon. Click Unconditional Expectations. The network shows the unconditional expectations for each node. The forecast expectations are exactly equal to the Validate expectations. This is always true. The simulated returns for each interval are set equal to the expectation for the interval. For example, each simulated large loss is negative 3.3%. The Validate expectations are also the average of the simulated returns in each interval. Therefore, the Validate expected large loss is also negative 3.3%. Click Score on the ribbon. Click on Validate minus Explore Probabilities. The network shows the difference between Validate and Explore unconditional probabilities. As you can see, large gain differs by 1%. This occurs because we set the forecast probability equal to 1%, whereas the historical data contains 0% large losses. The score shown at the top of the table refers to the Breyer's score calculation applied to all of the intervals. It is the mean squared error between the Validate and Explore unconditional probabilities and is a type of proper scoring metric. These calculations can be used to evaluate forecasting performance and cannot be gamed. Please see the Evaluating Forecast tutorial for more information. Click Score on the ribbon. Click Validate minus Explore Expectations. The scored expectations for the top node are displayed in the network. Similar to the probabilities, the scored expectations calculate the difference between the Validate and Explore unconditional expectations. For example, the Validate unconditional expectation for the large loss interval is negative 3.3%, and the Explore unconditional expectation is negative 10%. The Explore scored expectation is the difference between these two, or 6.7%. The score at the top of the table is calculated the same way as for the probabilities. This tutorial showed you some of the analyses used to verify the unconditional forecast created previously. In the next tutorial, you'll learn another way of viewing these same types of analyses.